welcome to a winter wonderland. We are out here. Oh, let me fix my scarf. I'm so bundled up, you can see, because there was a snowstorm. Oh my gosh, the geese, they're passing again. Can you see them? Where are they going? Are they confused? Yeah, there was a big snowstorm and I guess all the geese were like, all right, that's enough. We saw a falcon too. He was like right behind us earlier, just hanging out. He flew away and I missed it. I wish I saw him soaring. That was kind of cool. So many birds. It's beautiful. So we're outside. It's wintry and beautiful here. We're really enjoying Central Park right now. That's where we are right now. And I think the next stop is going to be a coffee shop. And we're just going to sit and read and just hang out for a bit because it is very cold. And we've been sitting on this bench for a little while. And I think we melted all the snow that was here. And if the back of my puffer is wet, mind your business. I just want to say real fast that I'm reading Blood Over Brighthaven. Put it on the screen here. Very good, honestly. We're questioning our morals and our intentions, if we're actually a good person or if we're horrible. So that's what we're doing with Blood Over Brighthaven. And also, I've been reading the Winter Trilogy. I can't remember exactly what it's called, but the first book is The Bear and the Nightingale by Katherine Arden. Insane series. So good. I read the first and the second book, and I think today we're going to pick up the third one because I really want to continue. I need to know what happens. I need to know. Spectacular. Main character is amazing, genuinely. I don't know what to say. That series has a tight grip on me this winter. Like I said, read the first and second book. It's January right now. And I read 2 this winter. I also read Hamnet. Saw the movie. Really great. Today is just about coffee shops, the snow, Blood Over Brighthaven, and maybe we're going to pick up The Winter of the Witch. Yeah, that's what it's called. The third book in this trilogy I am speaking of. So yes, that's the vibe. All right, so let's go and continue to enjoy the snow and read and drink some warm drinks. That's all we need right now. My nose is stuffy. Anyways, okay. See you. Bye. It just landed on my head. I genuinely can't believe it. I was just standing there and the bird just landed on my head. Did it poop?
No, there's no poop.
Nothing?
No. No claw mark.
Wow, I'm just so chill. Okay, anyways. Time to get on the train.
You're looking pretty fantastic. Years pass by with our goals intact. In tandem we're dancing till the nighttime lapse. We're in the daytime stranded. Your self-esteem tastes candid, but damn, it's hard to make a man with empty hands feel hands full of love. Like, damn, this a glove. Feel like the wintertime sun till our hands move backwards. Don't make a sound, it's a fragile walk that we tread into casual. No, I've had it good since I've had you. No, I'm scared as fuck, this is sad too, but this embrace feel natural. I wanna stay till past you, even if it means I gotta face the music and hear the sound of being happy.
Here we are. Every speck of weather is impeccable when you are near, and that's the truth, my dear. But words are the highest man. Our love never quiets down. Been itching to turn up the dial, but I'm scared to hear the sound. I'm scared to hear the sound. I'm scared to hear. Every speck of weather is impeccable when you are near, and that's the truth, my dear.
Hello friends, I kind of wanted to end this winter video that I've been trying to create in a bookish sort of way. So I really was enjoying winter so far. Like the past few months have been fun. Now it's March that I'm filming this. It's March right now. And the snow, I don't know, I'm so over it. There's no snow right now on the ground, of course, but it is very cold. And there is a possibility that we're going to get snow on Monday, and I'm not very excited, so I really don't want that to happen. But for the first few weeks or so that it was like super snowy and beautiful, really into it, as you can see in the first half of this video. So, getting into the more bookish portion of this video, I just wanted to share some books that I've just like really enjoyed this winter. So I just sat down here with some books that I am currently reading, and I have a reading vlog coming out soon, based around a few of these books. I got some tea here with me too. I have a peppermint with coconut milk tea. It's really good, honestly. I'm enjoying this very much. Yeah, so I have some James Baldwin here, historical fiction, and I have historical fantasy. I also have Wuthering Heights, and then also a poetry book as well. So these are some books that I have been enjoying. These are the ones that I have physically. I have one book I'm pretty certain that I'm going to talk about that I don't have physically, but I do want to just share a teeny bit about, which is a fantasy. So I just want to share some of my thoughts about these books, and maybe we can chat about them too if you're interested. So yeah, let's get on with it. First one I want to chat about with you is Maggie O'Farrell's Hamnet. This is the first book that I read for 2026, and you might know that Maggie O'Farrell's movie, Hamnet, actually just came out as well. I saw it in theaters. Excellent film. I suggest that you go and see that and maybe read this beforehand. There's a few more tidbits that go on in this book that I wish were included in the movie, but alas. This book more so was introduced to me a while ago. Like, I've had it on my TBR for a long time. When I first got back into reading, I went to Barnes & Noble with my sister and my mother. This was during the Barnes & Noble like hardcover 50% off sale, and I had seen Maggie O'Farrell's The Marriage Portrait, which is an excellent read. I would say it's very thrilling. It's very scary and beautifully lyrically written, just like this book as well. Yeah, so When I saw that she had this book as well, I immediately added it to my want to read list, but I just don't think it was the right time for me until this year, which I think was an excellent choice. So in Hamnet, we are actually following Agnes, who is a sort of witchy kind of woman, and people have kind of like avoided her and her mother before her because they have some tendencies that people think are really, really strange. She comes from a family that has like a pretty nice plot of land. They have a bit of like money to their name. And our other main character is a Latin tutor. He doesn't have any money. His family doesn't have much to their name, but his father is a glover. And so he is going to go into the glove making business. So the thing about this book though, although that we're like introduced to those characters, we are following the story of Shakespeare, but more so from his, I guess, like domestic life in that sense, because we're not really talking about his career in like a super positive sense and how like we know Shakespeare today. It's more so about what was going on when he was not there, you know, so how his wife Agnes had to adjust to certain things that were happening in her community, with their children that they eventually come to have, and ultimately the Black Death that is kind of sweeping across Europe at this time. I think that this book was really beautiful, and like I said, there were some bits that they didn't include in the movie, which I think would have made it much longer, but add a lot of like interesting context and nuance to, for example, Agnes and her stepmother, like the relationship that they have there is very tumultuous, especially how the stepmother feels about Agnes's mother and how her father seemingly still has this very strong attachment to Agnes's mother after her death. He still loves her very deeply. So that was like one part that I think would have been really cool and would have made the story more impactful, more compelling. One thing that Maggie O'Farrell really does extremely well is like this feeling of suspense, but her prose and the way that she writes is so lyrical, beautiful, and it helps you understand like the world around you and feel like you're looking through the character's eyes. The way she describes it is so descriptive. And there's even like one part of this book where she's like talking about how the son of Agnes and Shakespeare, he goes off and he's looking for a doctor at one point, and while he's on his way there, we're seeing everything from his perspective, how he notices this woman that always like greets him, and maybe there's like a dog, and there's like, you know, children like bickering in the street, you know, like he notices all these things. And then in the next chapter, we get a perspective where we're seeing all of the people that missed this little boy as he's like walking down the street. They didn't notice him, and how it was just almost like it was a hair too late, you know? So there was like a moment where things almost could have been turned around, but it just wasn't meant to be. And hopefully that makes sense. She just really fosters this sense of, oh, no, if only, you know? I think Maggie writes that really well, and this story was a very moving story overall. So I really suggest that you read this book and also The Marriage Portrait. It's one of my favorite books of all time. So I've already talked about this for 10 minutes, so let's move on. Next one I'm going to talk about before this series is Blood Over Brighthaven. I didn't really know what to expect when I picked it up. I also have another book by this author saved to my TBR. I think it's called The Sword of Kagan, something along those lines. So in the story, we have this city that's kind of set in what I imagine is like a big circle with a huge dome on top of it. And on the outside of the dome is kind of like this no man's land. But in this no man's land, there is this being, this entity that kind of stalks this area. When people from outside of this city become desperate enough, they decide to cross this barrier. So basically, lots of people try to enter the city because it offers a lot of safety and security from this thing, this entity that surrounds this area, and who knows, maybe others. The reason why people want to get into this city so desperately is because it offers a lot of protection from this entity, this being. It's called Blight. And Blight basically, it's kind of unknowable. It's like a shadow. It's like a beam of light. I don't know. Those are two different things. It has no form, really. But what it does to you is it kind of takes your essence, who you are, and then leaves the rest. But when it does, it kind of unravels your body into this sort of spiral, and it's a very gruesome, horrible scene. But people will try to cross this barrier into the city so they can be safe from this blight. Yeah, so that's like what we're introduced to at first, and we get perspectives from characters that are inside the city. So we meet this girl, and she's kind of a student of magic, I guess. She has this sort of typewriter sort of device that she uses to manipulate like energies, I guess. So in this world, women are not necessarily like allowed or encouraged to be mages, let alone this even better thing called a high mage, which they have a lot more power. Mages basically use this sort of like typewriter device in order to manipulate, and they can siphon it and use it as like power. So they power the city, they power the force field that protects them from the blight, using these devices to like siphon this power. So it's a very big job, right? And so in this world, basically, they're like, women can't do this, right? But she has been training like forever to become a high mage. And so she wants to learn how to do this power, and she's going to take this test that only one woman gets to take every like 10 or like, it's somewhere between 10 and 100 years. So it's a big deal, genuinely. So she is like, okay, I got to take this test. I want to do really well because it's going to set up a lot of women in the future for when they take this test after me. So she really, really wants to do well. So that's kind of like where things start. I don't really want to spoil anything because at first you feel like you kind of know like where the story is going. ML Wang kind of adds a few things later into the story that's kind of like the first sort of crisis and conflict between these two characters that really like come to care about each other very much, who are from very, very different worlds. There's a lot of conflict there, and our main character, she is confronted a lot with the things that she grew up knowing intrinsically. She's confronted with her bigotry, her hatred towards certain groups of individuals, and just how maybe not everything she knows about the magic that she's doing or the world around her, it might not be as true as she thinks it is. So I think she's confronted with that a lot in a really, really interesting way. And there's one moment in the story that I'm thinking about too where things change entirely. It's really like a very pivotal point in the story. And I think if that moment, if you read this, didn't happen, I think maybe I wouldn't feel as strongly as I do about the book. I think when our main character realizes not everything is like what she has previously thought it was, is it enough to just care about what's going on? Or should we be taking actions to improve what is going on around us? And also, when we do make decisions, what is the motivation behind that? You know, are you doing it? What is the reason for the decisions that you're making. And once you know the truth about something, you have a choice there in the matter now. You have almost like you have power in the situation. So how you confront it or how you move forward is now up to you. You have the tools. And also, I think another thing that was pretty interesting, like an interesting discussion, was like not always being the most perfect ally or the most perfect person to do something, or not having the most perfect reaction. I think that like there's a very interesting discussion to be had there. And I think that even the character herself was able to admit when something that she was doing was not always like in the totally most like perfect place. Some things were selfishly motivated. So yeah, I think those were like really interesting things that this story like sparked in my brain. So I did really like this story a lot. I think that's everything I have to say about Blood Over Brighthaven. I don't want to say too much because like I feel like I said, there's like a really interesting conversation that ML Wang is having in this story. And I think like, you know, obviously they're not like the first person to bring this up, of course, but I think that it's nice to see that in a fantasy novel, let alone a standalone, you know. So I really enjoyed this book and I would highly suggest. It was very moving and very emotional. So yeah, that's Blood Over Brighthaven. Next we have, oh my gosh, I don't know how I'm going to talk about this series because I just have so many mushy gushy feelings about it. But this right here is my pretty boy swagger. This is the Winternight trilogy. This is by Katherine Arden. And see, like, I don't know how to start this. The very first book in this series is The Bear and the Nightingale. Excellent cover. The setting of the story is medieval Russia. Our main character is Vasilisa Petrovna. She is an excellent character. When we meet her, she is literally a baby. Vasilisa, she lives in a remote village in medieval Russia, and it's very wintry, very, very cold. So you see why I picked up the series during the time that I did. But the main conflict that we have in this story is the struggle between pagan beliefs and Christian ideology that is kind of clashing at this time. So our main character, Vasilisa, she grew up with and continues to believe in pagan beliefs. A lot of the people around her in her life are more Christian and leaning more so into Christian ideology, and that's kind of encroaching on her life, and people are kind of asserting these sort of ideas and things onto her from a very young age too. And what's really interesting about her too is that she is able to see these domovoi. Sometimes they're referred to as demons, but it seems as though they're some sort of creature from folklore. They can be like spirits that kind of guard homes, or they can be more so like a representation, a certain season, or a guardian of a river. Things of that nature. She is able to speak with and communicate with these beings, and she becomes very, very close and well known and really invested in the domovoi's world. I really, really liked the setting of the very extremely harsh winter that Vasilisa experiences, and also oftentimes the beauty that she sees in the snow and the woods that are around her, and the wonder that she has at the natural world, and her desire to so fiercely protect it Vasilisa, unfortunately, has to conceal the gifts that she has as the world around her is becoming more and more Christian. There are a lot of people in this book and the next two books that follow it as well, who usually are men and usually have somewhat Christian beliefs. Usually they are kind of like the evil person in this book, and they just like really, really misunderstand her and want to control her. But what Vasilisa wants most in the world is to have her freedom and not be controlled or like dominated by anybody. She wants to be free of all sort of bindings that the world around her is trying to place on her. I just really enjoyed, especially in book 1 and book 2, the house spirits that Vasilisa is able to speak to. They are just such interesting little beings. There's also another one that comes up later, and he's a little mushroom. The idea of having a little spirit in your oven or a little creature that lives in there and, I don't know, just wants to protect your house. I think that is such a lovely, comforting idea. It's very dark, and the way that Katherine Arden writes the story, it's very lyrical, but not in a way that is too far gone. It's beautiful, honestly. I love the way that she writes. I am very excited to read the other books that she has published right now, and just so you know, she has another book coming out too. It's called The Last Unicorn, I think. I love the unicorn tapestries at the Met Cloisters. The idea of the unicorn and the very different interpretations that people usually have of it can be really cool and interesting to read about. Anyways, so I'm just excited to read her story on that. Back to what I was originally talking about. I just really enjoyed this series so much. There is a horse, a talking horse. There's many talking horses, actually. Baba Yaga, she makes a cameo in this. Yeah, there's lots of little spirits, and knowing me, I really love little creatures and things like that. I love the Emily Wilde series as well that has lots of little beings. So one thing that is kind of not great is that there is like a weird sort of romance in here that I was just like not like super into. Like, it's hard for me to see the difference between this romance and all the other people that kind of encroach on everything that Vasilisa is. I think it's still wrong. I don't know. Like, at the end of the day, like, it's hard for me to not see Vasilisa's character as a very young child. And so there is like a sort of romance that kind of blossoms between her and another character. I'm more so focused on Vasilisa, and her whole life story is so excellent. Book 2, I wish I could say more about this, but I really don't want to spoil this for you. I want you to go into this and just please enjoy this. Read it slower than I did. I just couldn't get enough. I literally read these in like a month. Oh my gosh. So thrilling. They all are, but I really loved The Girl in the Tower. Right now, it might be my favorite one in the series. Just like I said, talking horses, skirmishes, wintry scenes, familial love, bonding. There's a monk who was kind of like super epic, super awesome. There's also a monk that is not epic and is really evil and nasty. It's really hard to talk about things that you love so much, but I now own all 3 of these books, and I am so glad that I do, because I want to return to the series many times in the future in my life. So I just really suggest that you give this series a chance. If you already have, please let me know. You can get this series secondhand. Go on Abe Books, go on Thrift Books, get it at your library. Let me know what you think. This ate up my whole life for like a month. Another thing I will say as well about this book series is that it is so atmospheric, and it was really amazing that I read this like during the winter, because like I said, it has so many wintry scenes and just a lot of depictions of winter landscapes. So I just really saw that this winter. I feel very, very thankful that I got to read this during quite a few blizzards that we had. I just feel very lucky that I got to read this during such a beautiful winter season. It really made me appreciate winter and the beauty of it, the coziness, the warmth that I'm so thankful for that I get to feel when I go inside. And now I imagine that there is a little creature that guards my door and also my oven. So thank you, Katherine Arden, for that. And yes, get into that. There's just like so much in here that you will love. So just give it a go. Let me know what you think. Last 3 books, kind of. I am currently reading right now, and it's going to be in like you're going to hear more about them too in a reading vlog that I'm filming right now. So stay tuned for that. First one I'm going to tell you about here is Wuthering Heights. I have this really excellent copy here that my grandmother gave me. It's I think it's from the 1940s. I'm trying to be very gentle with it. It's from the International Collectors Library. You can see right there. There's the title. It's a beautiful spine. So, Wuthering Heights. What is this about? I'm sure you've heard a lot about this book and a lot of people's opinions about this book too since the recent release of Emerald Fennell's Wuthering Heights, in quotes. I will add a little bit to this conversation, I hope. So I have not finished this book yet, so I think that since I've started reading this book, the atmosphere that this book invokes is definitely very, for me at least, it feels very stormy, very blustery, hilly and rocky sort of landscape. We're talking about the moors, you know? I really see that imagery in my head, and for me that feels pretty wintry, I would say. There is some mentions of winter in this book, so I think that it's been very immersive in that sense. But when it comes to the actual plot of this book, from what I've read so far, we are first sort of introduced to this character named Lockwood, who is heading on up to Wuthering Heights to speak to his landlord. I can't really remember why he's going there, but he is. He's on his way. And Heathcliff is not a very friendly character. He has a horrible time at Wuthering Heights. And so when he finally gets back to his normal lodgings, he speaks to this one lady who had worked at Wuthering Heights and worked in the vicinity of Mr. Heathcliff for many, many years. And so he's like, hey, what's going on there? Why is he like that? She goes on this very long tangent, kind of explaining absolutely everything to him. And that would be the entire plot of this book. Lockwood is getting all of this information from Nellie, the woman who worked for the Earnshaws, specifically Katherine Earnshaw, who is the daughter of Mr. Earnshaw. She is the young girl who lived at Wuthering Heights many years ago. During her time there, her father did bring home a little boy and said, hey, he's gonna live here now. And she was like, okay, yes, awesome. I have a new friend I can play with. Her father grew very, very fond of this little boy, and they ended up naming him Heathcliff. Katherine also had a brother as well, Hurton, I believe, and he was not very happy that Heathcliff was now living at Wuthering Heights because his dad grew very, very fond of Heathcliff. So as Kathy and Heathcliff become very, very close, this is right around the time that their father ends up passing away. And because Hurton sort of had like a tumultuous relationship with his father and had a lot of feelings about how Heathcliff was treated, despite Hurton being, you know, Mr. Earnshaw's son, he had a lot of feelings about that. And so he basically strips Heathcliff of all his status and he becomes a lowly servant of Wuthering Heights. That is the sort of beginning of all of the really horrible things that begin to happen to all of the characters in this novel. This is truly a story about familial abuse and suffering. Now that I've gotten further into the book and like considering where I am in it right now, I think it's really about how that abuse can be passed on through different generations. Really, it's about revenge as well. Despite all that being very important to the story, it's really important as well to consider Heathcliff as a character. He is clearly a person of color. It is mentioned quite a few times that he is someone that has darker skin. He could be of Romani descent based on how Nellie describes him to Lockwood. The way that like Heathcliff is treated by not only, I'm pretty sure his name is Hareton, but how Nellie treats Heathcliff as well. She participates in this abuse and helps perpetuate it. How later on, as Katherine becomes more invested in this other family, like a more wealthy family that lives just along the way. They live at a house, a big, beautiful house called Thrushcross Grange. The family that lives there, the Lintons, they have very awful things that they end up saying to Heathcliff and assumptions that they make about him, and this happens to him over and over again. This is really where that seed of anguish and sadness is planted in him, and that really carries him on throughout the whole story and is the motivation for a lot of the things that he ends up doing throughout the novel. So, like I said, I haven't finished it yet, but those are some of the assumptions that I have made about it thus far. On top of that, though, I just want to say, like, I have really enjoyed reading this book so far, and at night, I really like settling down and just cracking this book open and just reading a chapter or two. I usually end up reading 2 or 3 of this book, and yeah, I'm really enjoying the story so far. I think that Emily Brontë had a very interesting perspective on these topics that she's covering in Wuthering Heights, and I think that it's worth the go. On to the next. Next book is If Beale Street Could Talk. This is a novel by James Baldwin. It, I believe, was published in the 1970s, I think 1974. If not, I will correct myself on the screen here. I've read another book by James Baldwin before. I don't remember it super well. So this feels like the first one for me. There's some quotes that I point out in my other video. Just, he's really excellent at putting together these very beautiful lyrical prose that all lead back to this greater picture at large. That sounds very broad, but for a bit of perspective, our 2 main characters are Tish and Fawny, and these are their nicknames, but James Baldwin refers to them as these names, as far as I know, throughout the whole novel, or at least where I am in it. These 2 characters have grown up together. They have grown up in the same neighborhood. They live in Harlem, and they have fallen in love. They love each other so deeply, so dearly. When tragedy strikes, Fawny is imprisoned wrongfully for a crime that he is fighting to try and prove that he has not done. His whole family, Tish's whole family and herself, are trying their very best to prove Fawny's innocence. Fawny and Tish's family have made it their mission to prove Fawny's innocence, and I think that there is definitely like a sense of we're running out of time throughout this whole novel. They are trying to find the victim of the crime who will hopefully testify in Fawny's case during the trial. Tish is pregnant, So her baby is on the way, and there's just so many factors that make it feel like there's just not enough time for anything that these characters desire. Everything that is happening to them has derailed all of these plans that they have, and they are so young. They're like 20 years old. This story is just so moving, and the way that James Baldwin is able to describe things in a way that feels exactly how I feel about them too. How he describes time, and how he describes sadness, or seeing a friend that you haven't seen in such a long time, or going out to dinner with somebody that you love so much, and what it feels like to figure things out even when all of the odds are stacked against you and you have no money to achieve this thing that you desire so deeply. I think that he brings those feelings from the page to life again, you know? It just feels so important, and this is a really good book to read during the winter. It's very short as well. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm going to say about it right now. Read this book. Read this book. Read all of these. The last one I'm going to talk about is Mary Oliver's Devotions. This is a poetry collection that includes, I think, a few poems from a few different books that she has written. I have just really enjoyed picking this poetry collection up and just reading a poem or two, and then later on just analyzing it in it's right here, in my journal. If I really, really like a poem, I will write it down in here and just kind of like go through it line by line, or like every other line, and just discuss my thoughts, you know, or just write down my thoughts about it. I don't really know if there's much to say other than that. It's just a beautiful collection of some seemingly very personal, and then also some that are very nature focused sort of poems, and I really like the combination of those two things because they are kind of one and the same, right? I'm becoming more and more interested in reading books or poetry that talks about nature, just what it means to be a part of everything that's around me. And I think that this is definitely scratching that itch that I have. That is something that I just kind of pick up here and there. I don't think I'm going to finish it this winter, maybe not even this year. So I'm just picking it up here and there. I just wanted to share it because I think that it is a really lovely, comforting collection of poems. So yeah, if you're interested in Mary Oliver's work and you just want like a more curated in the sense of those things that I mentioned, I think that this could be a very great option for you. I think there is kind of like an overarching sense of hope wrapped up in this poetry collection. So those are all of the books, and essentially I think that's the end of the video. I think that oftentimes I feel very negatively about winter. I have lived in New York City for 5 years now. Wait, is it 6? So I've lived in New York City for more than 5 years at this point, which is insane to say. But I think that I've always had more negative than positive feelings about winter. I think that it makes lots of things a lot harder. But reading a lot of these books that I have discussed in this video, I think that combined with really just trying to have a different outlook on winter and the really beautiful aspects of it, that has brought a lot of joy to my life. And I think maybe it can be harder for me to enjoy darker evenings and sort of moody days and overcast skies. I think for me as a person that is harder to enjoy, but a lot of these books have helped me to become closer to loving winter. This winter was pretty good. I think I wintered right. So thank you so much for joining me and watching this video. I hope you enjoyed, and if you have any thoughts, comments, things that you want to chat about, if you want to chat about these books, please leave a comment. I would love that. Thank you so much for watching, and happy winter, happy almost spring, and yeah, see you soon. Bye.